Hey guys, Matt Hayes here, Home Shield Foundation Repair. Today we're installing a waterproofing system in this customer's house. The customer's been dealing with water issues for years and years and years, and she's finally biting the bullet and getting a full perimeter waterproofing system installed today. So you're going to see more about that when we go into the basement, and we're going to show you exactly how we install this system so you can have a good peace of mind and how everything works and functions with a full perimeter waterproofing system with a sump pump pit, pipe, the whole works. So stay tuned. Ask any questions that you do have. So basically what we're going to be doing is, you can see how we've got this laid out. We're going to be installing the waterproofing system completely all the way around this basement. And the main reason that we're doing that is because this basement was getting hydrostatic pressure. So water was coming right in here, and that's the cove joint or foundation. So this foundation wall sits on top of a footer, a big piece of concrete, and unfortunately what happens in our area in Missouri, right, is we get a lot of rain, we have terrible soil, and so our soil doesn't allow the moisture to drain down into the water table, so it stays out in the yard, in our false water table. So what we're going to be doing here is breaking out the perimeter of the concrete around the entire basement and installing a sump pump waterproofing system. Over here in this corner, this is where the sump pump pit is going to go. So later on, you're going to see how this all works together. But we've got all the lines, everything's chalked out and ready to break that all the way around. We've got a little tricky spot under the stairs. We're going to show you how we go through that. And later at day 2 out of this project in Overland, Missouri. So here's what we've got going on. We've been doing a full perimeter drain tile system. And come here real quick, and I want to show you how we do this system. So we broke out this section of concrete. So we used our breaker hammers, and we got that out. Then we had to dig out our trench, and this is what's called the next to the footer system. So this perforated black pipe is going to act as our free flow. So anytime we get water that comes right here, which this is labeled as the cove joint, this is where the foundation wall sits on top of this footer. The on top of the footer systems, which I completely disagree with, they sit right here. Okay, and they're about 2 inches tall, and then you put about half of an inch of concrete on there, but that doesn't collect the water to get it all the way back to the sump pump pit, which we have in the corner. So we've completely broken this out, we've exposed the footer, and then right next to the footer, we were very careful not to dig this trench below the footer. You want to stop right there at the bottom of it. We're going to fill this entire trench up with rock. So here, let me show you this. This is the rock that we're installing. You want to get closer here. So this is all the rock, right? This is going everywhere through the entire channel. Okay, so eventually what's going to happen once they get done doing the rock side of this stuff, this is going to be a nice smooth spot right here. Then we're going to put our waffle board that goes down the wall in this way. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second, but it's going to act as a free-flowing channel. So any water that comes in through this cove joint is just going to roll over top of the footer, hit the rock, go into the pipe, and then onto the sump pump pit. This foundation, this footer was completely level, so we put a laser on this, and it was within a 1/16 of an inch. So the most logical spot is at the back of the house. On this corner, we're able to discharge without any concrete or obstructions in our way. So come here, I'll show you this too. So our sump pump pit, it's got our pump in it right now, 3 feet deep. And you guys will notice that we've got our 2 pipes that are into this pit. So the water is going to freely flow into this, right? It's going to be collected at the bottom. And then as soon as this pump is activated, it's going to get discharged out the side of the house. The system is completely continuous, so I'm not a big fan of doing just one wall. What I want to make sure that we do, because this customer is getting hydrostatic pressure on every single wall, so that's why it's a full continuous system, right? So, we're putting the rock and the pipe all in our trench, all the way through here. The trench continues on, and it would go all the way under the stairs. Come around here, I'll show you this part of it. But the system is completely continuous. So you see no breaks in the system. There's no corners, there's no elbows, there's no parts and pieces. This pipe is fully continuous, and so that any water that now comes in this basement is going to be collected in the sump pump pit and then discharged out of the house. why we're using this plastic and why we have this waffle board. It's because that when this waffle board is here, what we want to do is we want to create a free path for the water to flow under this. Let me move this real quick. Under this, along the footer, and get into the drainage system. Because we're going to go back with concrete. We don't want to just seal this off with concrete so that water can't flow freely. Let's even say you got a little crack right here. If it dribbles down the wall, it's going to get behind the system, but it's also prepared for the hydrostatic pressure. So when that hydrostatic pressure comes in, this is held off by 3/8 of an inch, held above, or held the concrete above. Then we're going to put this vapor barrier down. And what's the plastic all about, right? That's to create a moisture barrier so that the concrete doesn't sweat. So this is going to allow for a perfect and continuous flow that the water gets all the way back to the sump pump pit, no matter where it comes in. Nice and slicked up, but this is what it takes. And this is why we have that vapor barrier down here, so you guys can understand this, so that moisture doesn't come up through the concrete, right? This concrete's going to be about 2.5 to 3 inches thick, and it's going to cure. It takes about 24 hours to cure, about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days to fully cure out. But this is the process. So we're going to be doing this all around the entire basement, full perimeter. Let me show you this way over here. This is the finished product. So we might hit this one more time just to make sure that it's all nice and slicked out. But you see what happens with this waffle board, right? So let's say we do spring leak right here. It's going to be going down into the system there. But if you remember from the previous part of the video, that the water will travel underneath the concrete into the sump pump system, and then it's going to make its way. So if this is where the sump pump is, once all the concrete is cured, we're going to build our pipe. And we got our hole already prepped and ready to go. We're going to go up and out the hole, down into a frost fitting, and then out into the yard.